Greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned into the vault. Thank you for listening to live, listening to replay. Trust Christian, own nothing, control everything. Really excited today. I'm going to be doing a post about living trust. Are you really living trust? And I think this is a great question for individuals. Have a lot of individuals contact the vault and they are inquiring about living trust. They have living trust. These are very common across the board. And so today I'm actually going to be doing a podcast here talking about something that I really am passionate about. But I got this actual content from an article that I saw in Forbes magazine. So really good content that I'm going to bring to you all today about this particular. It was an article referenced in Forbes. It's 9 reasons why you should consider a living trust. And so I'm excited to go over this with you all, like I say, because a lot of people contact the vault, they have a trust, they're in a living trust, they want to go more private. So I always have to explain to them that a living trust is a statutory entity. And so by them not being aware, we have to explain, we have to kind of share and just provide to the people better content. I think there's a lot out there. What I do and what we do at the Vault is we do trust consulting. Thank you, B. Alexandra, for tuning in live and saying, hey, I appreciate you. Um, but what we do at the Vault is trust consulting, and so you can find lawyers. We encourage you to find lawyers and go over those details. But a lawyer works for you, and that's something that needs to be very clear in the marketplace today. As an entrepreneur, as a business person, the lawyers work for you. And so it's very important that we put this content out in a way in which someone says, oh, it's not legal advice or it is legal advice. No, it's not, because it's not advice. It's not one-on-one. This is for education, educational. This content is for educational and informational purposes only, and for you to do more research so you can find a competent attorney. And so, 9 reasons why you should consider a living trust. We're just going to go through, but I want to go over so much with you all because the reason why I definitely am excited about doing this post is because the fact that when I've consulted with individuals that have brought their lawyers on the phone, the lawyer will literally say, well, the individual doesn't want to divest themselves of the assets. So that's traditionally what your living trust is someone that's putting assets inside of a trust, and there's times where they can hold on to control over it, or from what this article shares, it shares that they can set up irrevocable living trust. But the trust is pretty much an entity that's a separate, distinct legal entity that's set up for you to operate. You may not be in control, but it does give you some type of shield, some type of protection over top of your assets. It doesn't give you complete control over your assets. It doesn't give you complete protection from being sued. Why? Because you still own it to a degree. And that's the issue, is when people don't give up ownership, you're liable for taxes and you're liable for lawsuit ability. So today I want to go over those things, and that's why it's important to really be abreast of different type of trust. There's over 80 different types of trust. So how do you know which trust to go into? And why is it that these companies such as Forbes and these reporters are only reporting one type of trust? In the public, traditionally, it's a living trust. When you go to a public attorney, they're going to share with you to go get a living trust. Why? Because they're limited in their capacity on what they can say to you in the public. They are barred members. They are public attorneys. They're not setting you up privately. So I'm not going to talk about too much private trust information today, but I am going to compare these living trusts to private situations. And so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase part of the article, but at the same time still give some good feedback on what it is. So the article, like I say, is it comes off the Forbes website, 9 reasons why you should consider a living trust. Clients often think trust can do everything, as if they are magical creatures, the unicorn of estate planning. It says different trusts do different things, clearly. Living trusts are a topic of small social gatherings, golf course talk, and it talks about how many people are trying to get into them. It says when you sign it becomes an enforceable document. This is quoted off their website. This isn't Trust Christian. Trust Christian has a lot more detail. It says living trust can be revocable or irrevocable. A revocable trust can be revoked and amended by you. An irrevocable trust cannot be changed once it is signed. Because irrevocable trust cannot be changed, you want to be extra careful to understand its terms. The vast majority of people will start with a revocable trust. Do you see? These are common generalizations, and these are things that, once again, this is public controlled knowledge that's being talked about right now. This isn't private. So thank you, Hustle Glow, for tuning in live. I appreciate you for saying hello. um, a typical estate plan includes a will that pours over your assets to a revocable trust, such as a living trust. On your death, any assets in the name alone will become part of your estate. Your will then directs the executor of your estate to hand them over to the trustee. See, this is the problem with this type of mentality. This is public information. They put this out here. Guess what? Oh yeah, we're not going to tell you all the fees that are associated with this whole transitional process of creating this system so you can pass along your wealth. Because if you don't pass along your wealth in these type of entities, I'm going to tell you the taxes that are associated for having assets in your name. There's called inheritance tax. Your children are going to get that. There's called an estate tax. That's what they're trying to bypass with this trust. You're trying to bypass probate tax, because if you don't have a will in place, you're going to have to deal with probate tax. And that's almost in this case right here, even if you don't have the will in place. So already a bunch of fees no one wants to talk to you about, but they want to tell you to go get in the living trust. But this is coming off of Forbes talking about, hey, let's go ahead and talk about the 9 reasons. They're giving you financial advice, telling you to look into these entities, and they're only really telling you one. There's over 80 different types of trust. For estate planners, this is where it gets fun. A trust can address many issues depending on the trust language. Here are some things that they can do. It can reduce taxes. This literally tells you it can reduce taxes for married people. It literally has nothing associated with single people. So how is it beneficial? This lets you know who they're talking to. Protect minor children. It says protect minor. A trust can hold money for minor children until they are responsible enough to manage the money themselves. Many clients prefer to give their children access to money staggered over a period of time, 25, 30, 30. Okay, now you see it says protect minor children. It sounds good. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll say. There's somebody that has a bunch of like names and letters and numbers together in the stream, but I do appreciate you for saying hi, so thank you for tuning in live. Save your grown-up kids from themselves. This is another reason why they say you should be in a living trust. If your child will most likely never be able to manage the money himself due to a drug or alcohol issue, or because they're just bad with money, the trustee can hold the money in the trust for your child's lifetime and distribute it as it is needed. Right. So it says save your grown-up kids from themselves. I was talking about how you can basically, what monies you do want to give them, you can give that money to them, and they'll be in a position where the trust will pay them out. All right. So, cool. We'll stop here. First of all, they're not telling you about inheritance tax. When your children inherit money from you, if it's not in the correct position, this is the incorrect position, in my opinion. So it says, what does it say? It says to protect them from themselves. First of all, anytime you give a distribution to anyone, beneficiary, in a beneficiary position, specifically money, they are taxed. That's a fact. That's not Christian. That's the law. Anytime someone receives money, they have to report it personally. So if the money is going to the children, there's still a tax liability involved to the children when they receive the money. Oh, Alvin, thanks for tuning in live. Keep your assets in the family. It says if your child is getting married and you do not like his or her fiance, you should have a trust. In the event they divorce, you do not want half of your assets winding up with your ex-son-in-law or ex-daughter-in-law. It sounds good in this particular position, where you're keeping assets in the family, but first of all, they're not very clear about what position this person's in. whether they're in a beneficiary position or a trustee position. And that is why we have trustee training, because the most superior position in commerce and in business is the trustee. It's not the beneficiary. Beneficiary gets whatever the trustee decides that they will get when they decide to get it, because the trustee has all the control, not the beneficiary. The beneficiary just receives whatever the trustee is able to give to them. Because I know someone, and we can talk to lawyers all the time. The trust doesn't do anything. The trustee does the work for the trust. So if the trust doesn't have any money or any assets to let the beneficiary benefit from, then clearly there's no way that they can get anything. They can't say, well, you have to give me something. Well, you're not in control of growing the assets for the trust. The trustee is, and that's the issue. So, moving on. It says, take the sting out of a fling. If you are concerned that you are in an untimely, in the event that you're in an untimely death, your grieving spouse will take up the pool boy and the cocktail waitress at the country club, putting the assets in a trust with the professional trustee will make sure your spouse does not take all the money and give it away to his or her fling. And it sounds good. I definitely, when it comes to personal relationships on that level, I think that trusts are the best prenuptial. I think this is why you see a lot of successful and wealthy people okay with prenuptials. I don't think it's anything wrong with it, in my opinion, for business purposes. When you understand that, yes, this does protect both parties and their assets previous to the marriage, which is respectable. And once there is a marriage, then another trust can be created, such as a family trust, and that can be the new trust for the new family that is going to be managing assets and things of that nature. So there's a lot of asset separation, a lot of asset protection, and a lot of not caring about this thought process with the fling. It says avoid probate. Oh wow, they wanted to talk about avoiding probate. If you put your assets in a trust, and see how they keep not putting living trust now? If you put your assets in a trust, there's over 80 different types of trusts. During the lifetime, instead of relying on your will to do it when you die, you can avoid probate. It is not difficult to do. You need to transfer ownership from your regular Mary Smith bank account to Mary Smith, trustee of the Mary Smith Trust account. And an inexperienced financial advisor or lawyer can assist you with this. This is still living trust conversation here. Thank you, Ed, for tuning in live. Avoiding probate. Right. So for all you all that are talking about a will, for all your families that have wills in place, there's another level to estate planning. That's called trust. And so in this particular trust, it helps you to minimize those fees and, like I say, eliminate the probate to a degree. Ensure your family's privacy. If you have a will that is probated, it will become a matter of public record along with certain other information such as the value of your assets and often an inventory listing of your assets. A living trust, on the other hand, is a private document. Now, this is something that I know that a living trust is a public entity, but I still would caution you all to think that it's completely private and there's no disclosure that may or may not have to be given at one point in time. And I encourage you all to do your further research when you are talking to a lawyer, if you are choosing to use a living trust, to be very specific on how much privacy is actually given to this entity, because this entity is a public created entity by a public lawyer. Usually they're going to write the contract. Protect yourself while you are alive. If you fund a trust during your lifetime and later become incapacitated, the successor trustee, oh wow, so who's going to be your successor trustee, ladies and gentlemen? Is it going to be the bank because they're managing the trust funds? Or is it going to be the lawyer? The lawyer that's sitting here telling you, I'm a lawyer and guess what? I'll make sure your assets get passed along. So now they're being the successor trustee. Why aren't your family stepping into the successor trustee? This is family. This isn't about anything else. And so it says the successor trustee will be able to manage the assets for your benefit. This is important for people who are single and for those who do not have children. You want to trust a trust in place that will provide for you in the event that you are unable to make decisions for yourself. That's what they like to say. I love how they always talk this type of stuff. Oh, what is it? If you get incapacitated, it'll provide for you to make decisions. Well, guess what? Where do you go for trustee training, ladies and gentlemen? How do you go and become a good trustee? You're either going to hand that responsibility off to You're either going to hand that responsibility off to a lawyer or you're going to hand that responsibility off to a bank. And in turn, that doesn't always mean that you're going to be looked out for the way that they're stating it. Second of all, where do you go for trustee trading? Where do you go to learn how to be the best trustee, to put the successor trustees in place? Where do you go to create the minutes or learn how to draft the minutes to actually do so? Guess what? Are they teaching trust in school? From what I'm aware of, they're teaching S Corp, C Corp, and LLCs. That's called public. And then when they talk about trust, it's very generic. It's over 80. So how do you know which trust to get into? A trust is a contract. So that's why we provide trustee training at the Vault, because we understand that there's a need in the marketplace for people that are in these entities but have no capacity or knowing how to operate these entities other than the information they were given by the lawyer saying this is some of the things you can't do and these are some of the things that you can do, and yeah, see you along the way. And when you actually want to get another, pay me more fees or retainer, that's the case. So ladies and gentlemen, we have a proprietary process in place. We don't deal and live in trust. Okay, anything you own can be taken or given, can be taken via asset, or you can be taxed on. So first of all, no, should not be in a living trust. And that's not legal advice. That's just letting you all know that that's not something that we utilize on this side of the table. And I can tell you right now, it's very flawed advice because of the fact when you all look at the 1041 tax form for trust and estates. Where's living trust on that document, ladies and gentlemen? See, I share with you all the truth, not half information. That article right there from Forbes was half information. When you go to the trust and estate tax form, which is a separate tax form than your personal taxes, there is no such thing as a living trust. Oh, did I say that? And guess what? The IRS said that, not me, not Trust Christian. The IRS said on their trust form for filling out taxes, where is the living trust located at? It's not. You have to know more detail than that. And guess what? Most of the people that are doing this, they're handing it off to a CPA who's a certified public accountant. And guess what? They're going to check off on that is the first question on the 1041 is what type of trust is it, and check all it apply. I can guarantee you they're going to put grantor type trust. Grantor type trust means, guess what? That trust document, that trust form, that trust tax form can be associated with your social. So true separation of assets. Where's the true separation of asset protection? It's not there. Secondly, I want to actually talk about this article that I got as well from, it was about Aretha Franklin and her estate. Shout out and rest in peace to Aretha Franklin, a great musician. She was a singer, and it says her estate is valued at almost a criminally undervalued $80 million. Oh wow, $80 million. They say Taylor Swift is valued over $300 million. So that already lets you know that some people are not operating in the best position, ladies and gentlemen. They're not operating in the best position. So for all these years, Aretha Franklin has not been able to put herself in a position where she's not taxable, or that she can grow her wealth in the correct position. And the correct position is being in an asset protection vehicle, specifically a trust. And then it just gets down to, well, what type of trust is it? That's what it comes down to. So I don't. So the article that I received with the Aretha Franklin article about her assets and not being inside of a trust, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. Aretha Franklin, world-renowned singer, has sung a ton of songs, valued only worth at $80 million, ladies and gentlemen. Like I say, someone that's younger than her, the contracts are different now for sure in the marketplace, but she's not in an asset. She wasn't in an asset protection vehicle. When her children receive that $80 million, if she has any, they're going to deal with what? Inheritance tax. If she doesn't have a will or trust in place, guess what? She's going to have to deal with her whole entire estate going through probate. So when I mentioned to you all about the will where your assets are going to be disclosed publicly, guess what? If she has nothing in place, the type of asset protection I'm talking about, all of those assets are going to be seen in the public. Everything. Why is it that when Rockefellers die, you don't see their assets being displayed in the public? Same thing with Carnegie's. So there are individuals, there are families, keyword is families, that have been able to put themselves and utilize specific pieces of information and actually make sure that no one knows what's going on behind closed doors. So I definitely am gonna see if I can pull up the article with Aretha Franklin and we can talk about that at another period of time. I think it's a great article just because she passed, and I think it's good to talk about the estate and where it's at this moment. I've talked about Prince's estate when Prince passed. It's unfortunate when you hear these movie stars and actors that they don't actually have these protections in place, but they're making a ton of money. So and guess what the community that we have and the community I come from, we focus on, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. It's never about how much you make, always about how much you keep. And thank you, Hustle Glow. Definitely it's not on the 1041. Definitely appreciate you. uh, and Prince, yeah, definitely. They talked about some of his assets and his estate and how that kind of went. But very, very important. How can I get hold of you? Don't want to have to pay $200 for a consultation. Need to set up a trust as soon as possible. Okay, so Lady T, I just want to be very clear. I want you to go to a public attorney tomorrow or whenever you feel like it and find out how much it's going to cost to set up what you're talking about, and then contact the vault, please. Because when you say that I don't even have $200 to start, what do you think a lawyer or some type of person that's going to set something up for you is going to do it for? Like I tell people every time when I start out our trust presentation, in person at workshops, the type of trust that we deal in, which are complex trusts, you won't even be involved in these type of entities or dealing in these type of entities unless you have over 10 to 30 million dollars. So it is a blessing for me to be on the internet and share this information. Why? Because I own nothing, control everything. No one's going to be able to sue or tax me for anything because I don't own anything. I don't have any money coming to me in my name. And that's the best part about it. And you can be in that same position. Thank you, Michael Barnes, for tuning in live. Uh, Mr. 6000 says, can a trust act as a holding company? Okay, so look, great question, but I'll elaborate. This is for public internet usage. A trust can buy, sell, lease, and hold property. A trust is a legal person. So there you go. The living trust can do what your social security number can do. It can buy, sell, hold, and lease property. So definitely, this is common knowledge that you can Google on the internet, but I know that the trust information, when you look up a trust in a Black's Law Dictionary or a legal dictionary, it says a trust is a secret. So how are you going to know specific piece of information? And at the vault, we talk about private trust. I had a trustee this past week ask me what makes, I think he asked, what makes it private as opposed to domestic. And I had to share with him, one of the elements of it being private is that it's not a state created entity, that it's not under any state legislation. That's important. Anything under state legislation is public controlled. They tell you it's yours, but it's not yours. It's like the social security number. It's not yours, but you use it. Social security number belongs to the Social Security Administration. That's a fact. It tells you on the back of your social security card or the social security card that you hold. It says, if this is not yours, return it. So they're trying to track people and make sure that they're, I'm not going to go there. The internet says otherwise. Much thanks. Okay, Mr. 6000, have fun on the internet. Like I shared with you, if a trust is a secret, how are you going to obtain information about something in the public when you're trying to obtain information about a private entity or a private world? When you go down to the public, what is it called? When you go down to Secretary of State, they're only selling 3 entities, and really they're only selling 2. They're selling corporations and LLCs. Now you have the opportunity to get the S Corp elected on a federal level as an S Corp, but why aren't they selling trust on the public side? They're not selling trust to you at the state level because it's a private contract. It's originally a private contract, but when you go to a public attorney, they add in the public legislative rules so you can operate in the public jurisdiction, period. This is what you learn in private trustee training. But if you want to keep searching the internet because it says something otherwise, that's awesome. And so I thank you all for tuning in live. I definitely wanted to rehash this living trust situation because it is a great conversation to have. Like I say, we get a ton of inquiries from people that are in living trust, and that's a big deal. I'm going to put my email inside, or the Vault's email inside of the chat here in a second, but as well, Christian@trustchristian.com. Oh, you're fine, Mr. 6000. I appreciate the feedback. I appreciate the question. I definitely appreciate it. It's great dialogue for people that are not having these conversations. It's great dialogue for people that don't know about what is it that we're talking about. The fact that you're even searching, you're in a great space. Like I say, who's utilizing trust? When you go to public school, they're not selling you trust. They're not trying to help you out with trust. It's private. So, I just wanted to, it's always great to have a conversation, whether it's it's not a stupid question, it's just a question nonetheless about what's really going on. And I share content so you can have a better conversation with the lawyer, because a lawyer works for you. You can't say, lawyer, what do I do? That's not how it works. That's why you're cutting the check to the lawyer. So, yeah, definitely. Trust is the supreme entity to be operating in, not just in commerce, but like you asked about holding property and things of that nature. It's always awesome. So I thank you all for tuning in live or listening in a replay. Like I said, we have a bunch of clients that contact us about living trust or they have one, and they understand that it's not the most superior position in commerce. They understand it's not private, it's public. And guess what? Privacy is where we want to be, to separate assets and to grow assets and minimize tax liability as well, personally. So thank you all. If you want to email the vault, Christian@trustchristian.com. Once again, that's Christian@trustchristian.com. You can contact us and feel free to inquire about a consultation to put yourself in a position where you can take advantage of what is that we're talking about. I'm going to answer a couple last minute questions here and then I'm going to go. But thank you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. I am going to do my best to do an episode tomorrow. Hopefully my mouth is not numb. But I definitely am going to do my best to do an episode tomorrow for everyone. This is still August, so I'm going to ramp it back up and make sure that I'm doing an episode every single day. Actually, doing an episode every single day about trust. Just took a hit in the family, and sometimes you have to understand what priorities are. And so I understand, and this is what I've worked really hard for, is to put our family in a position where when the time is needed I can be there. But once again, we have some great questions, so everybody on the chat, I'm going to get to them right now. Everybody that's listening live, I definitely appreciate you, and we're going to get into some really good questions. um, Lady T says, I truly appreciate you. I'm in the middle of probably, but I don't have a question. How quickly can I set up a trust and be able to operate to buy a home? So a trust is a person, and your social security number is a person. And so in turn, what happens, think about it, usually with people that are going to get a financing for a home, you usually have to have 2 years worth of tax returns. And so the same thing with a trust. The trust is a person, so 2 years worth of tax returns. That's what we've experienced in our community, for people that are utilizing entities to buy property, specifically utilizing a trust or a real estate investment trust. Those are great pool funds, asset vehicles. But outside of that, just a great entity to operate in general, as far as asset protection and growing it outside of your personal name, but a trust. So when you're looking to buy property, it's not to say that you can't put the property inside of a trust or the trust, and it's not to say that you can't utilize it. It's just, I can tell you right now, it's not gonna. It's one of those things that you're gonna have to take some time to build up the credit profile with the actual trust. My battery's going down on my computer, and I'm not near the charger, so I just want to keep it in a quiet area, and we're gonna finish up here. What about opening a LLC under the trust and making a LLC a creditor and making another LLC a debtor to be a lender in the public? Once again, Rodney, appreciate the question. That's a private consultation question. I'll kind of give a baby answer to some of the things that you have here. A LLC can be under a trust. Because a trust is a person, so it can hold other property. A LLC is a property, a piece of property. It's a source of income for you. So, or the trust. So it just, if you understand, that's what we go over in trustee training, is how to make all those contracts work and things like that. Very, very important. But yes, a trust can own an LLC. That's why you see Google. which is an LLC, is owned by Alphabet Company. Alphabet Company is definitely a trust. So excited to let you all know that. Appreciate you, Charles Clark. Appreciate you big time. Hustle Flow. Appreciate you. Um, Michael Barnes said, "How can that work for people that haven't paid taxes?" What? It says, "How can it work for people haven't paid taxes, just couldn't afford it, but the future's bright?" Okay, thanks, Michael, for tuning in live. And you know, a trust is separate from a person. Granted, this episode is about a living trust, so there are some things, like I say, that can be tied back to you because the trust is usually in a revocable position, which means you still own it. You just don't own it, which is really weird, but you can talk to a lawyer about it. But once again, if you still have rights or access to property, ownership to property, and receiving benefits from it, there is definitely a big and huge increased chance of lawsuitability and as well tax liability. So, we don't deal in those type of trusts, and that's the most important part. So I'm going to put the email, Christian at Trust Christian, if you all want to get a consultation, Christian at Trust Christian. I do appreciate you all for tuning in live or listening to replay. It's been awesome. And feel free to email us. Peace and blessings, and talk to you all tomorrow.